Hello, listeners, and welcome to yet another episode of the Nigeria Football Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Olu OK. Today is episode 140, and I just wanted to quickly do a quick roundup of the Nigeria versus Russia game and a few bits and bobs involving Nigerian players. Sorry about the timing. I was on holiday. You know, in this life, you have to enjoy yourself. So I was away when Nigeria was playing against Russia. As everybody knows, that game took place about 11 days ago, and Nigeria drew 1-1 against Russia at the Luzhniki Stadium in Russia, courtesy of, initially, Cyriel Dessers had an own goal scored, and then Torunarigha scored his first international goal for the Super Eagles to make it 1-1. To be fair, if you watch the preview of this game, you'll see that I wasn't too far away with my prediction for the starting lineup. Pretty much almost every position was spot on, except right winger. Maduka Okoye started in goal. Bright Osai Samuel started at right back. Bruno Imachi started at left back. We had a central defense pairing of William AFCON Super Eagles captain and Semi Ajayi. I did think Ugbo may start ahead of Semi Ajayi, but obviously Eric Chell went for experience in the national team colours, with Ugbo coming on as a second half substitute. We saw Rafael Yedika and Franco Yeka man the middle of the park as expected. Osimhen definitely started as we anticipated. Also, Christian Uche was rewarded with his second cap for Nigeria in his first start after his good cameo against Jamaica in the final of the Unity Cup. And we saw Fisari Delibashiru start in the right wing position, which was the one I missed because I forgot that Fisari can play, is versatile enough to play on the right. In the Super Eagles setup, he's been playing more as a cam or a number 10 or second striker. So that's the one I missed. And then we saw Victor Boniface lead the line as expected. Who else came on for Nigeria? We saw Torunarigha come on to replace Victor Boniface in the second half. And he, of course, scored a wonderful finish because, you know, he had to anticipate the Russians making a mistake. And the goalkeeper, Safanov, who's the backup goalkeeper at PSG, passed the ball straight to Dare, and he had the presence of mind to take a touch and just roll the ball past the goalkeeper to score his first goal for the Super Eagles in such a hostile environment. You know, the stadium was packed out, 70,000 plus, full to the brim. Russia don't play that many games right now because they're banned by FIFA. So every time they play a friendly match, it's a much bigger occasion for their fans and teams to support the country's national side. So it was pretty much like 99% Russian fans in the stadium, as expected, but the Super Eagles still did us proud. I also got my prediction spot on. I said my head was expecting a 1-1 draw, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. Although I did say I was hoping for a 2-1 win for Nigeria, which was my heart, but it wasn't to be. In terms of the Russian starting lineup, apart from Saponov, obviously we know Miranchuk, who's been a seasoned striker, so attacking midfielder for in the top 5 leagues for a while. Most of the names playing in the Russian league, as you'd expect. You know, we didn't even see the likes of Golovin play in this game, but still a decent test for the Super Eagles considering the current predicament. You know my personal feelings. I didn't think Nigeria should be playing a game like this because it won't count towards our FIFA World Ranking, but the game was played and it's still a run-out for the team and Eric Chelle to, you know, have a look at certain players and see how they fit in the Super Eagles setup. I think overall, when you even look at this game, Nigeria played pretty decently well. You know, we had 4 shots on target, even though Russia had more shots than us. But in terms of actually peppering the goalkeeper, we did a better job. Yes, we had lower possession compared to our hosts, but that's anticipated considering the hostility of the environment. And yes, we're still missing a lot of our starting players like Osimhen, Lukman, Iwobi. Ndidi was also missing from the team. Bassey was also missing from the team. Ola Aina was also missing from the team. But generally, it was still a good run out for the team. The goal we consider was very unfortunate. Semi Ajayi, although I've mentioned on this channel about what I think about Semi Ajayi with his feet, he's not the best, to be honest. You know, in the air we're very confident about him, but anything on the floor, let's just say Semi Ajayi, there's a reason he's been released by West Bromwich Albion this summer, who are a championship, and he's already 30 plus. So I think respectfully, it's time for us to see more of Bassey and Iwobi, who I think have now. I mean, Bassey is always a starter for Nigeria anyway, but I think Iwobi has used this 3 friendlies to really stake a claim for the national team, starting games and really showing good composure in the center of the park. Also, Benjamin Frederick's coming through, but we need to see him play games in a first team squad next season, either for Brentford or on loan. So watch this space. We still have the likes of Osho and Akpoguma, who also play in top 5 leagues, and I'll be touching on Torunarigha, who's also moving back into the top 5 leagues in Europe, which is always a good sign for the national team. Shout out to Cyriel Dessers. I want to commend him for taking his chance and scoring with the smart finish for the Super Eagles. Maduka Oke was also really impressive in this game. I hope the detractors watched the game. He made 2 saves and was really impressive in goal. The goal that we considered, there was nothing he could do about it. Also, Boniface wasn't bad, but of course we also saw his post after the game about him retiring, which he clearly was just emotional. He jokes a lot, and we probably shouldn't take it seriously, but it also tells you the kind of pressure he's dealing with playing for Nigeria, that he felt the need to post something like that. He now has, I think, over 10 caps, and he's yet to score a goal for the national team. So maybe humor is his way of brushing it off, but you can tell that it's definitely something that's affecting how he feels. So he's now got 13 caps for the Super Eagles and no goals, which obviously as a striker is something that'll be weighing down on you, and it's not nice or a good feeling. But anyway, we'll brush it over the shoulder. I'm really looking forward to how his season goes next year. Fresh start under Erik ten Hag. He fell out of favour with Xabi Alonso in the last few months at Leverkusen. So I think the opportunity to just have a very solid campaign. He'll be playing Champions League football. Leverkusen will be expected to at least finish 2nd or 3rd in the Bundesliga again, despite losing Florian Wirtz and Jeremy Frimpong. This is a team that we expect to retool. And Erik ten Hag is still a seasoned coach, despite what happened at Man United. So really excited to see what Boniface can do next year. I don't think he should move anywhere. Just settle down and have a very good year in the Bundesliga and win your place back from Patrick Strick in the first place. One thing to also mention about this game, after the match, Ola Aina, the respected journalist, mentioned that players' bonuses and allowances were not paid by the NFF. Why does this always happen? It's a tale as old as time. We hear the same thing. Meanwhile, Ibrahim Gusa will be going around to go and be giving statements about we achieved our objectives with the Unity Cup. My friend, why can't you pay the players their bonuses and what they're owed? Why are we always hearing this thing time and time again? And then we question their motivation. Yes, they do not play for the money, but if they're playing for a tier 1 national team, they will never have to have any of these issues. Or it will not even be a debate. It's just sorted. So why is it that when it's the Super Eagles, it's always an issue or a debate? And then the arrogance of them to not act like it's not something that happens is what even frustrates me the most. But anyway, I just want to call that out. But anyway, ultimately, considering all the 3 games the Super Eagles played, we have to say it's been a good run out for the Super Eagles. 2 draws and 1 win. The win against Ghana is always positive. Yes, we ended up beating Jamaica on penalties, but officially it was a draw, which was okay. There's a lot to still fine-tune and rectify. I think Nigeria conceding goals in all these games has not been a good sign. Our defense has a lot of work to do. You could argue that with Bassey missing, obviously we saw the glaring errors there, and Ola Aina also missing. But we had our 2 first-choice left-backs in the tournaments. We saw Iwobi come through. We saw Chustekong, the captain, playing the game against Russia. So we can't say the backline was too far off. Osai Samuel also played the friendly against Russia. So although we're missing Ola Aina and Calvin Bassey, I think there's a lot we can still expect from our defense. I like the pairing of Onyedika and Onyeka in the middle of the park, as Ndidi continues to advance in his years. I think Onyedika is our gem and should literally start every game for the Super Eagles going forward. And Onyeka never lets us down after the season he's had. But there's clearly something we need to do in terms of fine-tuning our squad to become as resilient defensively as we were in the last AFCON, where we only conceded, I think, we considered 1 goal in the first game and didn't consider another goal until the semi-final against South Africa, which was a penalty. So we really need to get back to that defensive stability, because even when you look at our World Cup qualifiers, it's something that we've seen continue to happen, us conceding silly goals, drawing 1-1 against teams should not be drawing. So fingers crossed we'll see that better. I think our attacking gameplay has been better. We've seen the resurgence of Samuel Chukwueze over this period. We've also seen a player like Santos Uche introduced to the national team fans' consciousness, and I thought he's really taking his chances pretty well with aplomb. Cyriel Dessers also had a really good cameo, and you could argue that him and Aroko Daria have put themselves in shape to be Osimhen's backups, although I still think Boniface's talent is greater than the two of them. So it's been a good run out for certain players. Moses Simon also had a good run, especially in the Unity Cup games. So let's see what can happen. It's nice to be able to take a break from Super Eagles now, and we can focus on the transfer window and the women's AFCON. But of course, we have crucial World Cup qualifiers to play in September, and hopefully Eric Chelle would have learned more about his side and the best combinations to put forward to make sure that we prosecute those games, because we're playing Rwanda at home and South Africa away. If we do not win those two games, it's really over. It's already kind of over, if we're being honest. Yes, we expect FIFA to dock South Africa 3 points, but our qualification has been so terrible that literally we have 4 games to save our World Cup hopes, and we must win all 4. And if we do not beat South Africa away in their own backyard, then forget about it, because our points tally is already looking too low for us to qualify as one of the second best runners-up in the Intercontinental Confederations tournament. So really, really, truly, it is critical times for the Super Eagles. So we'll see what happens in September when we reconvene in terms of the Super Eagles. Now, I just wanted to say thank you guys very much. If you watched up to this point, please continue to give the video a like, share, and subscribe. We've officially hit 2,000 subscribers, and the channel is now officially monetized. So we've rolled out memberships as well, Flying Eagles tier and Super Eagles tier. The aim is to do members only live streams at certain points, or to have specific perks just for our members, while also serving the greater community that we appreciate. Like I said, this is a labor of love for the Super Eagles and something that I just do in my spare time, and I really appreciate the engagement and all the comments, both good and bad. I mean, both the knowledgeable fans that respond and the ones that sometimes I wonder where they got their opinions from, It's all appreciated. This is why it's football. It's for everybody. And it's the one thing that unites all Nigerians, whether you are in Nigeria or in diaspora. So I just wanted to say a big, big thank you to everybody. We do not take it for granted. Please continue to subscribe. I've also got a few things planned over the summer, so you still expect certain content here and there throughout the summer while we rest ahead of the resumption of the next season. Now, I just wanted to touch on a few transfer news that we've seen involving some of our players. So Victor Osimhen, of course, has rejected our Hilal's transfer. They were trying to get him in just before the Club World Cup started, which has started on Saturday. Today is Monday, June 16th. They made a number of approaches, but he made a decision not to play for them next season. He still has time to decide, and I think they were trying to rush him before the Club World Cup. Meanwhile, the transfer window is still open until September 1st, which is over 2.5 months away. So why should he rush himself when he knows the importance what he brings to the table in terms of his talent and his skill level and the kind of team he's capable of playing for? So I was really glad personally to see him turn them down. I'm not going to lie. Let's see what happens. I've heard there's interest from Juventus. Obviously, Galatasaray is pushing hard to sign him, and there's also interest from English clubs from what we've seen. So let's see. Transfer window is very long. I personally would love to see him in the Premier League, but if not, I would love to see him play for a Juventus or a PSG. No disrespect to Galatasaray. At worst, we'll take the Galatasaray because we're still playing the Champions League. But make no mistake about it, we know that he is better than that level. Although we respect the support of Galatasaray, but we still know where the Turkish league is in terms of UEFA coefficients for a reason. Also, I wanted to shout out to Jordan Torunarigha. Remember, the Nigeria international, who was also a German under-21 international, has left Ghent in Belgium and has signed on a free transfer for Hamburg. Hamburg have just been promoted back to the German Bundesliga after a 7-year absence. They're one of the giant clubs of German football. They've won the Champions League before. They even had Kevin Keegan win a Ballon d'Or play for Hamburg in the 80s. This is a team with they're one of the most supported teams in Germany for sure, and they have that history behind them. This last 7 years has been the worst spell of their history, but them coming back into the big time. And then also the manager who was Torunarigha's manager in the under-21s for Germany is also the manager for Hamburg. So it makes sense for him to go and play for a manager who trusts him and he can play in the Bundesliga regularly. Obviously, their main aim will be to battle relegation coming up, but I think Torunarigha will play most games, and him just playing top 5 leagues. I have a big thing about having Super Eagles players playing the top 5 leagues for a reason. They're the top 5 leagues for a reason, season, and they're the most impressive leagues and the leagues where our players will get to improve the most and test themselves the hardest against better opponents. So I'm a big fan of this move. I heard he rejected Marseille, Cologne and Anderlecht. So let's see what happens with this one. Also, it's been confirmed that Ola Aina looks set to be staying at Nottingham Forest for one more season. It's not yet been confirmed by Forest, but it's looking very likely. I've always said Ola Aina is a player that can play for top teams. And, you know, Nottingham Forest ended up finishing 7th and they'll play in the Conference League. So Ola Aina will get the chance to win even a club title potentially next year. But good signing for him. Let's see how things play out. And it'll be interesting to see how Nottingham Forest handle juggling the Premier League alongside Europe. And one thing I also wanted to mention, it'll be interesting to see how Chidera Ejuke performs next year, because Sevilla have a new manager, the Argentinian player the Argentine coach Matias Almeida has agreed to become the new head coach on an initial 3-year contract. Agreements have been done and contracts set to be signed despite links with Italian clubs. He just recently moved from AEK Athens in Germany. And the reason why I wanted to call this out is Sevilla are a bit of a sleeping giant in Spanish football, as you all know. This is a team that win Europa Leagues for fun. But the last 2-3 years, they've been daggling between mid-table and the relegation levels, you know, which is not where you'd expect Sevilla to be. And I think it's affected Ejuke's development, even with his injury. So it'll be nice to see what he could look like under a manager who maybe favors him. I don't know too much about Matias Almeida's style, but when you have a new manager, it's always a new opportunity to get a fresh start and show what you can do. So I'm hoping that will be the case for Chidera Ejuke and this new manager. Also, just in terms of the women's team, Nigerian football, Rasheedat Ajibade has left Atletico Madrid after 4 years. She's set to decide her future after the women's AFCON. This is a player who scored over 50 goals for Atletico Madrid in 4 years and has steadily risen to become one of the top players in the women's game. You know, so really intrigued to see where she ends up going to. I've heard a rumor she may go to the NWSL in America, but watch this space and we'll report wherever she signs to. Same thing for Nigeria attacker Rinsola Babajide, who has left UDG Tenerife after a pretty good season this year. Also, Chiamaka Nnadozie, the Nigerian #1 goalkeeper, has left Paris FC after 5 years. Remember, she won the League Cup this season after a pen shootout against PSG, and has also played in the Women's Champions League quite a few times for Paris FC. So I think she's probably the best Nigerian goalkeeper ever in terms of women's, and she's one of our most highly rated players when you combine players, outfield and goalkeeper in Europe in terms of her reputation and how well she's known and how well she plays. I would not personally be surprised to see her move to the WSL in England or maybe the NWSL, but I'm really, really intrigued to see where she ends up moving to now that she's moving from Paris FC in France. And then finally, there's a rumor around Cyriel Dessers. As I explained, he's done really well for Nigeria over the summer, but there's a rumor that he may be moving to AEK Athens in Greece this summer. He's currently contracted to Rangers, where he scored 51 goals in 108 appearances in 2 years. So pretty reliable goal scorer despite the misses. But that's an average of 25 goals a season, which is no mean feat. He ended the season with 18 goals and was the top goal scorer in the Scottish Premiership, even though you could argue that he could have scored a few more because he's guilty of missing some gilt-edged opportunities. However, it will be a big loss for Rangers if that happens. And the new manager, Russell Martin, who was sacked by Southampton halfway through the season. Me personally, I hope he stays in Rangers because he will likely end up playing in the Champions League or the Europa League. I think it might be the Champions League qualifiers because Rangers finished second while Celtic go directly to the Champions League. So either way, he'll continue to play in Europe, and he looks like it's a place where he feels comfortable. We know he just got married to his wife in Italy, although I heard that AEK Athens are offering him £30,000 a week. So let's be honest, footballer money is different, and this is even considered a lower scale amount if he was playing the Premier League, for example. So we wish Dessers all the best, and let's see where he ends up going to in the summer, or if he ends up staying put. Also, just to touch on the Club World Cup, we have 5 Nigerian players playing in the Club World Cup, which has just kicked off. The first game was Inter Miami. Was it Inter Miami? Inter Miami and Al Ahly, and it ended up 0-0. Obviously, we saw Bayern Munich thrash Auckland City 10-0 yesterday. Palmeiras and Porto drew 0-0. We also saw PSG smash Atletico Madrid 4-0, and Botafogo beat Seattle Sounders 2-1 in the late night kickoff yesterday. I think the next games we're going to see will be later today with Chelsea playing LAFC at 8 o'clock. Now, Zedu Sanusi is one of the players for Porto, and then we have Onuche Ogbelu playing for Esperance of Tunis, and then we have 3 players playing for UAE-based Al Ain FC. Rewan Usarki, the winger, Hassan Mohamed, the goalkeeper, and Joshua Udo, the midfielder. As for Zedu Sanusi, he was on new sub yesterday in Porto's 0-0 draw against Palmeiras. Let's see if he gets any minutes when they play Inter Miami on Thursday or Al Ahly on Monday. Although it's looking like the writing is on the wall. He barely got any minutes after he came back from his injury. And to be an on-new sub again, it just shows that he's probably not really favored by the manager. But let's see what happens in the summer. As for Onuche Ogbelu, the central midfielder, I actually realized that he scored the winning goal for Esperance of Tunis in the Tunisian Cup final on June 1st a few weeks ago. So he should start games, and they kick off their tournament later today against Flamengo. So that'll be 2 a.m. Nigeria time. So technically today, but it's tomorrow. So if you want to watch a Nigerian play in the Club World Cup, Onuche Ogbelu, the midfielder, will be in action. And then they play LAFC and Chelsea next week, Tuesday. So they're in the same group as Chelsea. Finally, the Al Ain boys of UAE will be in action against Juventus on Wednesday night, 2 a.m. kickoff, and then they play Manchester City Sunday night. That'll be a 2 a.m. kickoff before rounding up the group stages against Morocco's Wydad Casablanca on Thursday. So those are the 5 Nigerian players that will be involved in the Club World Cup. We do have 3 other dual nationals who are yet to declare for Nigeria but are eligible for us. So we have the Chelsea duo with Tosia Darabayo and Tyreek George, who will be in action later today, playing LAFC, Flamengo and ES Tunis. And then also Kari Chukwuemeka is still eligible for the Super Eagles, and he'll be in action for Borussia Dortmund in the Club World Cup. Final bits and bobs to mention: Calvin Bassey has been named as the Fulham Player of the Season for 2024/2025. Well-deserved achievement and no surprise there. Alex Iwobi also finished second in the voting, which is no surprise. Both of them were excellent for Fulham, and I think 2 of the big pillars in terms of performances for Nigerian players in the Premier League. Hopefully we'll get the likes of Osimhen and a few more joining them in the Premier League, because the more players we have playing in the best league in the world, especially for top 10 teams, the better for our national team, especially as we try to save our World Cup qualifiers. And we have an AFCON to prosecute starting in December. So we need all our players playing for the best clubs. And I just love to see that the flowers gotten by Calvin Bassey and Alex Iwobi. Also, for Premier League heads, the Premier League fixtures will be announced on Wednesday. So look out, watch this space. Really exciting. That's the football world we live in. The season just ended, 3 weeks ago, and yet we're going to get the fixture announcements for next season as early as Wednesday. So look out for this space. And then finally, remember the Super Falcons will be in action in the women's AFCON this summer. The first game of the tournament kicks off on the 5th of July with Morocco hosting Zambia in a 9 p.m. kickoff. Remember, Nigeria have 3 opponents: Tunisia, Botswana, and Algeria. These are teams that, with all due respect, we expect Super Falcons to get 9 points. But the NFF have not helped them in terms of the preparation with the minuscule friendlies they've played. However, we play Portugal on the 23rd of June. So next week, Monday, the Super Falcons will play Portugal. So that should give them good preparation ahead of the women's AFCON. So Nigeria's games kick off from the 6th of July. And then the 10th of July, so 6th of July against Tunisia, 10th of July against Botswana, and then the 13th of July against Algeria. So please support the girls. We'll do our best to bring coverage of that and how the team perform in the women's AFCON. But that's it for this episode of Nigeria Football Weekly. I think officially we're done covering games that have involved the 2024/2025 season. Obviously, there's a Club World Cup going on. But that's it's important to us, but not as important as the normal league campaigns that have just finished and the Nigerian games that have been played. So officially we can say we're signing off for 2024-2025. It's been an amazing year. Please support the women's. This is the home jersey for the women's Super Falcons for the AFCON, so you know me, I always have to support. So get your jersey and support the girls. It's been an absolute pleasure to bring these podcasts to you, and we've seen phenomenal growth in terms of the channel. Even though it may look small to people that are seasoned vets, 2,000 subscribers on YouTube willingly with no adverts. deciding to subscribe to your channel. You know, it really, really makes my heart warm, and I'm really grateful for all the support and for all the engagement. We're looking for ways to level up the podcast and to bring you updates over the summer here and there. But I just wanted to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, everyone who's watched, taking the time to share a video on social media or engage with us in any format. It's much appreciated. And we're looking to get better. And of course, we have so much football to look forward to with the Super Eagles, with the World Cup qualifiers and AFCON coming. So fingers crossed, we'll have so much for you to feast on. Fingers crossed, we'll see our players sign for even better clubs in Europe and end up playing for even bigger teams as the football season returns from August. So until next time, I've been your host, Ola Aina. Today's officially episode 140. Thanks again. Enjoy the football. And until next time, peace out. Ciao.
Thanks for watching this video. Please like, share, subscribe, and click the bell to get a notification whenever we drop a video. You can also find our social media channels listed below. And of course, up Super Eagles and Nigeria, they ever carry last.